Hey, this is Ryan Phillips here, and this is Game 6 in the match between Chris Reynolds and John Trivett. Chris had the white pieces in this game, and we were treated to another Grunfeld. I'm not sure what the score is exactly. I believe it's 3.5 to 2.5. John is leading at the moment, but I could be mistaken as to what the actual score is. I probably should go back and look at my own videos just to kind of recount what has happened so far in the match. Um, but I remember all the games have been very entertaining, and I think both players have played very good chess. Very entertaining and creative ideas have been kind of displayed in all the games so far. So this game we have d4 from Chris, so another Grunfeld, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. So basically just in the standard Grunfeld ideas right here. C takes D, knight takes D, e4, knight takes c3, b takes c3, bishop g7. And then here Chris went with knight f3, which is not as quite as popular as bishop c4. Actually, they're equally popular. Nope, I'm sorry, my eyes are deceiving me. 339 to 329, so it looks like bishop c4 is played just slightly more often. But it looks like white actually scores a little better with the knight f3, at least according to the Ripka database. So we see knight f3 from Chris. And then John plays this interesting move, castle. So Chris kind of gave me some insight that this move confused him a little bit, or maybe surprise is the better word choice than confused. So obviously I think Chris was expecting c5, which is what I would have expected if I was in this position, seeing that what's played a significant portion of the time. But it doesn't look like there's anything particular wrong with castle. So it seemed like a interesting choice by John to kind of mix up the play a little bit and maybe avoid some of the other variations that we've kind of seen in the match. Here Chris played the second move, rook b1. So I think Chris probably has a lot better understanding of these types of positions than I do. I don't think I've ever really played the white side of this, and I don't think I've ever played the black side of this either. I usually play c5 prior to castling. I think I read once why c5 was a little bit better than castling, but I can't recall offhand why it's better. I mean, just off the top of my head, it seems like if you can save a tempo by playing c5, knight c6 immediately. Puts pressure on the d4 square, and then maybe you can even delay castling sometimes. So maybe castling is just kind of tipping your hand a little early, and I'm not quite putting enough pressure on the d4 point immediately like you probably want to. Anyway, Chris played rook b1 here. I don't know if I care for this rook b1 move too much because it doesn't seem to address the position to me. After black castled, I don't see why rook b1 how it's particularly logical in this exact position. So I don't know if I would like recommend this move. I'm not really sure what the point is. Obviously, put pressure on the b7 square and delay the development of the light square bishop is the idea. Which that makes sense. So it's not it's not a terrible move, of course. It's okay. It's it's a playable move. I just don't really see the logic of it, I guess, immediately. And it looks like after like a b6, maybe the light square bishop could even come to bishop b7, have like a double fianchetto line or something. Or even b6 preparing c5 is an option. But John went with c5 immediately, which I like this move. So typical Grunfeld idea, just striking at the center. Nothing surprising about this move. And Chris played bishop e2, which I think is a sensible move. Just get your pieces developed and get castled. And it's not exactly clear where the bishop belongs in this particular setup. So maybe bishop e2 is preferable to even like bishop c4 in this particular line. So we see c takes d from John. C takes d. So this is these are always interesting trades in the Grunfeld. You have to know as a Grunfeld player when you want to make the exchange. So now you're opening up the c file for both players. I think it's logical since Chris moved his rook to b1. It looks like probably black could get the rook to c8 and control the c file. If Chris wants to end up moving the rook from b1 to c1 again, moving the rook twice, I think that's a minor concession. And I think that loss of tempo will make black's life a little bit easier in equalizing. So anyway, see queen a5 check. computer recommends queen d2, and Chris said after the game that he considered this move also. He opted for bishop d2, which is perfectly fine. So he basically is giving the a pawn and giving black these dangerous a and b passed pawns right at the opening. But in exchange for that, white does have all their pieces are pretty well developed, and white's going to be able to castle next move as well. And it looks like white should be able to control the b and c file quicker. So this is a pretty cool game as far as the imbalances go. Basically, white has a lead in development in exchange for the passed a and b pawns and the pawn deficit. And if the rooks are on b1 and c1, that could probably lead to troubles for black completing their development. So queen takes a2, castle, knight c6, so normal developing move. And then Chris played d5, knight e5. And then Chris ended up with knight takes e5. I actually preferred knight d4, just slightly, just to keep some attention on the board since you're down a pawn. I thought it might be good to kind of keep some pieces on the board and see what happens from there. Plus this knight b5 looks like a good square for this knight. And after the knight moves to d4, this bishop on e2 really takes away all the advanced squares from the knight. So I thought maybe taking was not necessary, but definitely a fine move. I don't know, I think Chris is kind of banking on his lead in development here though, so I'd say, you know, just personal preference, I'd probably keep the pieces on the board and see what happens. So we had knight takes e5, bishop takes, and Chris played f4. And he was slightly critical of this move in his comments to me about the game. But it seems like a fine move. I know the f4 kind of advance is pretty common in the Grunfeld, playing for like f5 or something at some point. Or not f5, usually e5 and trying to create like a nice pass pawn over here on the d file is extremely common theme in these positions. So John plays bishop g7, and again, I mean, I don't comment enough on John's play, I don't believe. But he just, he's played excellent this whole match, I think. If I compare his moves to the computer, they've been right there almost every game. He's making top-notch moves. So I've been really impressed with John's play in this little match with Chris that they're having right now. So bishop b4. Alright, and maybe I spoke too soon. I don't really like this idea from John right here, a6. I don't really fully understand the purpose of this move, other than to keep the bishop out of b5. It doesn't look like it's doing anything else. So yeah, I don't really understand why a6 was played here. So yeah, I don't know. I guess the idea, it looks to me, is that John wanted to play rook e8, but he saw that bishop b5 would then be quite strong. So he played a6, just giving up the pawn to stop bishop b5. But the problem now is rook e8 looks, yeah, that's forced here. After d6, which is a very good move, this d pawn is excellent. I mean, this past d pawn is going to be hard to stop, and the bishop on e7 is a very nice piece here. And it's really hard for black to complete the development still. For example, if the bishop on c8 moves, then the b7 pawn is going to hang, and that's a significant threat. So you don't want to allow your opponent's rooks to get on the b file, and of course it will net a pawn also. And I think the passed d pawn now is a lot stronger than the a pawn since it's more advanced, and there's still a lot of pieces on the board. So whenever at that stage of the game, yeah, where the outside passed pawn is deciding, in this position, I think the actual passed pawn in the center is probably a tougher piece to deal with. So anyway, John played queen e6 here, which computers recommends as his first choice, so very logical move. Just hitting the e4 pawn and getting the queen centralized, so it has some more options. On a2 it wasn't really doing too much anymore. So Chris played queen c2, which doesn't seem like the most forcing continuation. I think I probably would have played e5 here myself. That just first glance, this is like a more natural move to me than queen c2. I think if I was going to defend the pawn, though, I think I might do it with bishop f3. I don't know if there's any tactical reputation to that, but I think bishop f3 with the idea of e5 is not bad. So let's see what the computer says about that. Yeah, his computer basically says give up the exchange and get rid of the passed d pawn, which is quite strong. But I still think this would be good for white. So anyway, though, we saw queen c2. b5. Yeah, so this is really one of the drawbacks of queen c2. It kind of gives black a free move, and black really wanted to play b5, get the bishop on the b7. So I think queen c2 is probably just a little too slow for that reason. And then we see rook fd1. And then the idea behind this move is that I believe that if black played bishop b7, I think Chris's idea was to push with d7, but I'm not. But I guess this probably is tolerable according to the computer. So let's just look at this. Yeah, it's actually not good at all for white. So I wonder if both players were worried about this line unnecessarily. That's my guess. I'm guessing both players thought that giving up the exchange would just lead for a better position for white, but that's actually not the case. Black's actually better here according to the computer. Oh shoot, yeah, queen b6. Okay, so I missed that move myself. So yeah, so this is the rook on d8 is actually kind of a liability here because the threat is queen b6 check, forking the king and the rook, and also the e-pawn is attacked twice and defended once. And when the queen moves to kind of cover this diagonal, then the pawn won't be defended at all. So, for example, I'm guessing this might be a line. Yeah, and then these two passed pawns look really good, and black also has a 2 bishops, so maybe it's enough to ground out a win here and actually in this position. So anyway, so I guess bishop b7 was playable in this position, but John was probably worried about this d7 push, so he played queen d7. Excuse me. So anyway, after queen d7, e5, queen a7 check, which is this was kind of a nice 2-move sequence by John to play queen d7, queen a7 check, and I'm guessing he's going to push bishop d7 perhaps. So yeah, I really like the way that John untangled his pieces here. That was very very creative little move order here. But it looks like Chris's position is still very nice just because of this passed d-pawn still. So here we play rook b3 with the idea of just playing it to c3, I believe. Bishop h6, rook c3, rook a to c8, and then Chris played rook takes c8, and the game is a draw here, which I think is a fair result. But Chris actually said that computer I'm not sure which program he used, like rook c7. And my initial reaction when I saw that move was queen e3, just taking advantage of the fact that the rook is pinned to the queen. So, if, for example, rook takes here, then rook takes c2 is winning for black. So yeah, so it's hard to see the full merits. Like, okay, rook c7 again, queen e3, okay, queen d2, just to get out of the pin along the c file, and also to renew the threat on the d7 bishop. So I don't know. I guess this should be enough. I guess this should be enough for white to win, the computer showing, but it does look like a very complicated line. So I can't really fault Chris for not going into this variation. But anyway, yeah, I think it was another good game by both sides. I think right here Chris's plan with rook b3 to c3 is probably a little slow. But I don't know. Maybe it was a good plan. Maybe just if he played rook c7. He could try for a win, but again, it's a very complicated position. Anyway, though, no, my analysis was a little shorter than usual today, but I think the opening I don't really need to go over too much anymore since I think we're mostly familiar with the Grunfeld lines now. And I thought the middle game positions, the moves were pretty logical, so they didn't require too much explanation in that stage either. Anyway, this is Ryan Phillips here. Hope you enjoyed the video, and thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it.